I'd like to give you a little overview of FilePro's define output function before I actually show you what it does. You see that we're in the VG customers file already because I have that set file name set, and I can either create a new output or I can go look at a default output. The default output, you remember, is one that I created back here when I defined the file VG cust. I pressed U, I pressed escape. When I pressed X, one of the choices is, should I create a default output? And you remember I said yes to it. Well, if I go into define output now and I look, excuse me, I went to the wrong place, I went to define processing. If I go to define output, I see that default output. Just going to tell you that we'll discuss it in a moment, but it's pretty much not worth discussing. Here's new. I want to create a new output. Okay, I have to give it a name. What kind of a name? Let's call it first. Okay, what kind of thing is first? Here is FilePro's basic output selections. It can be a report, it can be a mailing label, it can be a full page form, it can be something called other printed output, or it can be a processing only format. These are output formats. Reports are line by line, row by row. They allow you to do subtotals and totals, and they show you one record after another in a report format. A mailing label, obviously, it allows you to print mailing labels, 2 up, 3 up, on LaserJet sheets, wherever you want. You can print any kind of mailing label. Very nice function. And full page form gives you 1 page per record of FilePro data. It stops on every record and prints you 1 page however you design it. You might want to design an invoice per customer, or a customer name and address record, or a Rolodex card or something, but it's on a full page form. There's no totaling or subtotaling. You'd have to do very special things to do that, because it generally just prints 1 form, moves on to the next page, prints another form, another form. When it's done printing all the records you selected, there's no totaling to be done. It's not a report. This choice is a legacy thing. I've discussed it with the authors of FilePro many times. What's it for? Nobody knows. No one will ever know. Maybe in the future something will be put in here. It does take you somewhere, but it takes you to exactly the same place that I believe this takes you to. So you're essentially in the same, there's no reason for this choice on the menu, but there it is. A processing only format. This is an output format because it's not input. You're not having someone sitting at the keyboard typing input, typing in data. It's an output. We call it an output processing. In other words, it's just a processing table that runs against your data. You run it against some files or any record, and you run this processing against that data. It does its work and it's done. It doesn't print anything. It doesn't really output anything to hard copy, so it's called a processing only format. By the way, with any of these things, with this report, for instance, with a report, with a mailing label, or with a full page form, you can have a processing table attached to that report, so that on every record you can run any number of 9,999 lines of processing against each record before you print it on the output. Same thing with a mailing label. You can do all sorts of processing and then print that particular record's mailing label. And same thing with forms. You can attach processing to them. Very powerful. Very extremely powerful. Now, before I move on, in the next lesson, before I teach you about reports, labels, format, full page forms, etc., output is generally paper-based. We want to print something. So in the next lesson, I'm just going to give you a rough overview of printers in FilePro and the printer maintenance function.